and welcome. You're watching NewsX and I'm Megha Sharma. Calling it an inadvertent error, Meta India has apologized for its CEO Mark Zuckerberg's statement that the incumbent government in India lost elections in 2024 due to its handling of the COVID-19 pandemic. Meta India's Vice President Shivnath Thukral took to social media platform X. He stated that Mark's observation that many incumbent parties were not re-elected in 2024 elections hold true for several countries, but not for India. We would like to apologize for this inadvertent error. Thukral also said that India remains an incredibly important country for the American multinational technology conglomerate. Let's open up this discussion. It's an interesting scenario in the current scheme of things, and I'm going to open my conversation with Ambassador Pradeep Kapoor. Ambassador Kapoor, do you think this was a Freudian slip from Mark Zuckerberg when he comes to the Rogan podcast? Rogan is the man who is touted to be pro-Republican Party. And there is a statement coming out from Mark Zuckerberg that all political parties, including the BJP led by Narendra Modi, had lost the elections, which is far from the truth. This was in fact true because Joe Biden ended up losing the election, and this is what he was targeting. This is what he was actually trying to convey, that it is the Democrats who lost the elections in America because of their poor COVID policies. But like I said, this is a Freudian slip because time and again, whether you take a look at Western media, whether you take a look at the likes of Facebook, the Meta parent company, up until the Republicans came to power, up until Trump came to power, had a very anti-India stance.
So, Megha, you have said it very well. And yes, it was not just a slip, it is a mindset. And that is the sad part, in the sense that the starting point itself is that how do you paint India in a negative light and not treat it as an important enough entity in the Committee of Nations. Now, if they understand that India is one of the emerging powers, emerging global powers, and history is on India's side, it has a young population, it is a major driver of the global economy, then they would automatically tend to be more and more respectful and do some more analysis and study before making any bland statements like that and painting India in the same brush as many other countries, and being very careful about making negative remarks particularly. Now, the media narrative, the mainstream media narrative in the US, even in UK and sometimes in Canada and Australia and in other countries of Europe, is sometimes unnecessarily negative or harsh whenever they view India, whenever they analyze any policies about India. The Economist is another glowing example of negativity. BBC, the Wall Street Journal, New York Post, Washington Post, New York Times. So all these have their biases. And I think it's about time that slowly we sort of stand up and tell them that these are biases which are not acceptable, and they need to be more factual, more neutral, and understand what India brings to the world, what are the capacities, what are the contributions. And those have been happening for the last 5,000 years, but they will continue to happen even more so in the coming years and decades. So they're to understand that it is a responsible power, it is a positive power, it is a benign power, it is a contributing power. Now, one primary basis for them to have a better understanding of what India stands for is to just look at the Indian diaspora. And if you look at the Indian diaspora, for example, in US, what does the diaspora bring to the table? The highest ethnic group in terms of earnings per capita, the highest tax-paying ethnic group in the whole country, the most law-abiding group are the Hindus and Indians and the Bharatiyas. The least number of people in jails or prisons are the Indians. The leadership positions in many countries are occupied by Indians, including in US, the Vice President, Indian American lady Kamala Harris earlier,
Yes.
the Prime Minister of UK, Rishi Sunak, the Prime Minister of Ireland, the Prime Minister of Portugal, the Prime Minister of West Indian countries, the Prime Ministers of so many countries, and leaders and ministers in Canada, etc., etc. The list is quite endless. So you are also bringing in family values, social values, ethics. You are becoming, education also the highest per capita education status is Indians. Now to brush a country like India without any sensitivity,
Yeah.
without any empathy, without any understanding, without any knowledge, and reflects a mindset which they have to understand that it is about time they have to get over it now.
I agree.
The
I
time is
agree.
past for that.
Yes.
And what is the future? They have to start looking at that. I'm
Yeah.
glad that the representative in India, who's the public policy head, has apologized, but it would be much better if Mark Zuckerberg himself understands where he went wrong and where he has to adjust his own sort of blindness and sight
to be
for the
to be
future,
honest, he is
so that
adjusting,
does
and he's
not
adjusting very
continue in the
rapidly.
same vein.
Let's just take a look at what has happened in the last few weeks itself. The fact that he himself has come on Joe Rogan's show is says quite a lot, that he is leaning towards the Trump administration. He has decided to remove the fact checkers and allow for X-like community notes to be put up to screen the kind of content that is put up on Facebook. In fact, Meta is amongst the conglomerates which has allotted $1 million US for Trump's inauguration ceremony. He has come out and made scathing remarks on the Biden administration, revealing the facts that every single time there were some anti-COVID vaccine comments that were put out on Twitter, erstwhile Twitter, they would be asked to be pulled down, and there was strong condemnation that came and strong reprimand that came from the Biden administration. So actually this remark that had been made by Zuckerberg was targeting the Biden administration and its COVID policies that led to the death of hundreds and thousands of people in America, particularly, in contrast to how India was able to better manage it. Not just better management, we had our own indigenous COVID vaccine, and the results were out where we were touted as one of the fewer nations with the largest population in the world to be able to find solutions and a roadmap to ensuring that minimum losses happen during the pandemic. Surinder Singh Lali, it's an interesting scenario. Tables have turned. Zuckerberg, talk about Jeff Bezos, they have made their policies that are supportive and tolerant to the Republicans, to the Trump administration. Is this also going to be gradually reflective in the way the narrative that is built? As Ambassador Kapoor said, there is this narrative, there is this mindset that has been embedded, which is difficult for the likes of Economist and Washington Post to come out of. And Zuckerberg, with that statement, is just fulfilling that sort of a perception, that ideology of the West.
Thank you, Megha. And I'm not too sure, and neither am I qualified to comment if this is a Freudian slip or part of a sinister plan. But I'm going to keep a few points, and then I think by the end of the program, your viewers are far more intelligent and competent to make a judgment on what this could be. Mega American supremacy, of course, financial is there, still the biggest economy, but American hegemony is up for revision. The way things are panning out, the two unfinished wars and all of that's going on around the world. Mega, I think the United States now uses social media as a weapon to interfere into the internal matters of other sovereign nations. Elon Musk, who actually earned Donald Trump's ear by paying $250 million in his campaign fund, the way he's been commenting on, England and especially on Germany. I mean, lately he had this long conversation with Alice Weidel. I mean, it was over an hour-long conversation, and honestly, I didn't know what the conversation is all about because it's all over the place. But having said that, Elon Musk is trying to set the agenda in other countries and asking for head of the state, states to resign. I mean, I'm not too sure if being rich qualifies any individual to comment within the internal dynamics of any other democratic country. Just to give you an idea, the kind of power that, these the Elon Musks and Mark Zuckerberg wield, that Mark Zuckerberg has about 5 different apps. Facebook, 3.07 billion active users. Instagram, 2.4 billion. WhatsApp, 2.8 billion. Messenger, 1.13 billion. And Threads, which is 300 million. And Elon Musk, who has 619 million active users and 210 million, follow him. So, the larger point I'm trying to make is that now, to me, this seems to be the new weapon which technology is being used to interfere and spin a narrative or to put a politician or a certain party on the back foot, as long as that individual is in line with the American way of geopolitics. Americans have always been in a habit of having allies and not strategic partners, and that's probably the reason why I think with Trump 2.0 coming up, the couple of cases, be it the Nikhil Gupta case or be it the Adani case, they're all going to be instruments that America uses and deploys, for other countries to fall in line, or otherwise. I mean, right, like you said, Mark Zuckerberg, I mean, he recently opened up and said that, the Biden administration was pushing him, asking him to censor information on COVID-19 and other alternative point of views. So for me, I let the viewers judge, but I think there is far more going on in this world, and now all of that is going to happen through a mobile phone, which is probably 6 inches by 2 inches,
Okay.
which can be a weapon today, not only to turn turn governments down, but even create genocide. So I think there is a lot more to it than what has actually happened.
Okay, all right. Joyita, what are your comments, particularly with regards to the readjustment that these big tech companies and their owners are forced to do in wake of Trump taking on versus how they have been treating developing nations, global south, and particularly India?
I mean, these are the worst kind of opportunists possible, especially Facebook. At least Elon Musk is very clear, he is very clear about what he wants, what he doesn't want. He has taken a clear stand that he has gone right, that he is going to support Trump whether he wins or not. He made the decision long back. When did Zuckerberg switch sides? Only when it became apparent that Kamala Harris is losing and Trump is coming to power. Then he tried to wriggle out of the mess that he has landed in. So basically, he's, as I said, he's the worst kind of opportunist. Apart from that, he's also ignorant. If you remember, he was sitting next to Mr. Modi at the Facebook headquarters, when Mr. Modi was visiting,
Yes.
and basically trying to portray himself as the best friend, one of the best friends that he has. He is of the Indian Prime Minister. And this guy who is supposed to run a multi-billion dollar company, or is it a trillion? I don't remember exactly, but the fact is that he says that he doesn't know that that the Indian Prime Minister do not lose the election. In which world does it live in? The joke doing the rounds is that it seems that Zuckerberg has studied in the WhatsApp university. WhatsApp, he owns all WhatsApp. He doesn't even have that basic knowledge. As for what he is planning to do is, right now we will see, but the fact is that when it comes to this particular Facebook, there was a clear tilt towards the left. I find it, and it didn't start with Biden. It started when Trump was in power in the last time. All right. So, it is not that when he says that the Biden was putting pressure on me. No, I don't think that's the case. I mean, this election interference, or rather this Facebook's leftward tilt, we have been talking about it for at least 10 years now. So, basically from the time of I would say from Trump and all, because at that time there was no X or rather Twitter as such to influence public opinion in a big way, and anyway Jack Dorsey was at the helm. So, Facebook was one of the main modes of communication on social media at that point of time, and they used the influence to the hilt to ensure that the voice of the right is suppressed. It's a fact. All right, whatever he might be saying, he is basically, okay, I'm going to use the word, he is basically lying. He is basically trying to save his own skin.
Right. Ambassador Kapoor, interesting analysis thus far. Now, when we take a look at the 2024 elections that have taken place worldwide, 70 countries took part in the electoral process. There have been right-leaning governments that have come to power. There has been a complete readjustment in how the people living in the West are looking at their governments, where immigration has been a problem, where protectionism is something that people are advocating to save their jobs and livelihoods. Do you think in a situation such as this, it becomes helpful, or like Joyita said, opportunism that is being grabbed by both hands by big tech, because they understand how the tide is tilting in favor of one ideology over the other? Ambassador Kapoor, can you hear me? Okay, meanwhile, while we try to fix that, Surinder Ali, would you like to take that question?
Can you repeat the question, please?
The fact that in 2024 so many elections have taken place, a number of right-wing ideological parties have come to power. There are a number of people in the West who have shown disgruntlement against parties that are left of center or left-leaning, because they are at this point of time worried, concerned about immigration that have caused a number of terror activities. They are also unhappy about how their jobs are being taken away by immigrants. There is protectionism that they at this point of time advocate in favor, and therefore it becomes another opportunistic way for these big tech companies to change their stance.
Absolutely, because if you are in any of these countries in the Western world, to find that migration which has happened, includes a lot of people who are terrorists and others, include.
Okay, there is a network issue. Surinder Ali, would you like to take that question?
Yeah, Megha, I absolutely agree with you. Megha, let me talk like a two-year-old. Every politician has an agenda. And now with the kind of influence these very few individuals sitting in Southern California have, obviously they do become an instrument in the hands of the politicians to follow the line and further their agendas in terms of what these politicians and their research tell them is what their voters want to hear. So it's very simple math. I mean, even if you see be Elon Musk, he didn't have quite great things to say about Donald Trump, but once he understood, or for that matter, even the Washington Post or the New York Times, I mean, they all fell in line because they understand that end of the day, they are still going to be in the land. They have to go by the law of the land. And a lot of them, their businesses are vulnerable to the policymakers in Washington. So obviously, this is pretty much like, lack of a better expression, mafia, but not really in the south of Italy or Brooklyn or Staten Island in New York. They're more like white-collar individuals who are controlling the very thought process through our telephones, through the digital footprints we leave, and through other narratives that they spin on social media in order for us to start thinking the way they want us to think.
Okay, Joyita, quickly a response from you, and I'm going to touch upon the aspect of the electoral planks that the Democrats were fighting on, Kamala Harris was fighting on. It is diversity, equity and inclusivity. You think the narrative is now turned on its head, especially when Meta and Amazon and other of these big tech companies deciding to withdraw their policies which are in favor of DEI, which is diversity, equity, inclusivity, in wake of the backlash that is being faced by politicians, Democrat politicians particularly, who have been taking away funds from important departments like what happened in Los Angeles wildfires, and deliberately pouring them into departments that favor, in terms like an affirmative action towards these communities.
Well, I think that is the whole policy of the Biden government, the whole policy of the Democrats. It is totally skewed. It is frankly out of joint, you can call it. If this particular LA fire that you mentioned, if it had taken place before the elections, the Democrats, the Kamala Harris wouldn't have lost even California. That was the only state I think she was ahead of Trump.
Yeah.
And that also, interestingly, that was also the only state where there was no ID needed for, voting. So, a lot of things are wrong with the American system, and this whole DEI business, just because, what they did was that the whole American society, they thought that they can hold, these leftists, they thought they can hold the whole of America. In fact, it was now extending to the whole rest of the world. Everyone can be held to hostage. Everything becomes a matter of DEI, inclusivity and all that. There was bound to be a reaction, because ultimately this seriously leftward tilt, whatever they were propagating was very communist kind of a thought process, and America is not communist. Come what may, they are not communist. Kamala Harris may be talking about, oh my goodness, you guys, communism is so bad and all, but her parents were terrible communists in a way. So was she, so is she, her whole family, that Meena Harris and all, they are all leftist Marxists and all. But when you try to impose that on a country like the USA, it is bound to backfire. And
Yeah.
in fact, from backfiring, now it has gone to anger. And this, as I said, if it was LA fire had taken place, they would have been wiped out. They wouldn't even have got numbers in triple digits.
Yeah.
So, yes, and the problem is, you see, all this big tech, because of their own profits and all, they started following that line, this Marxist line, while themselves being the, what shall I say, the biggest capitalists possible.
Yeah.
That is the sheer hypocrisy of it. It really sucks.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting to watch, because the same actors and the Hollywood fraternity, which was massively in support of Kamala Harris and Biden and lambasted Trump, have come out and criticized and spoken harsh words against the Democrat governor of California, Los Angeles, and then obviously criticizing the mayor of Los Angeles, and who's also incidentally Democrat. Okay, I'm out of time. I thank all of you for joining me on the telecast, and thanks for watching NewsX.